Hey guys, Tom Barton from TomBartonSports.com here. Guys, we have it. Coaching changes along the league. Every year it seems like we have coaching changes that are just in mass exodus, and there's bright hope behind those coaching changes. We're going to take a look at some of the teams that have coaching changes this year, who are the top candidates, and what my thoughts are. Guys, if you do like the video, please make sure you subscribe below. Also, comment below. I love to have the interaction. Also, check me out at TomBartonSports.com and at TomBartonSports over on Twitter, as well as my podcast. I have the Believe in the Ivy League podcast. Go check it out. Tom Barton over on any of the podcast networks. So let's look at it. Look, every single year, on average, coaches are fired. There's about 7 coaches fired every single year. This year, we have a possible job with the Raiders. Look, they got to the playoffs. I think that Mark Davis wants to make a huge splash. I think that he is going to replace him. But as officially right now, he does still have a job in the interim tag. Jacksonville has an opening. Denver has an opening. Miami has an opening. The Bears, Minnesota, the Giants, and Texans. Those are the openings out there. So let's look at each job and see the appeal of each, right? First, we'll talk about the Raiders. Look, this is a playoff team, right? They just got to the playoffs. It is an alluring stadium. It's a new fan base. There are some good things there for Las Vegas, but there are some negatives as well. Look, you do have Derek Carr, but is he the answer? He certainly looked like the answer to me this year. You have guys like Darren Waller, Josh Jacobs also, and a pretty decent offensive line, a couple of defensive guys to build off of. But I think there is still kind of a question along the lines of, is Derek Carr really a franchise quarterback? I believe that he is. I think he's one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. But is the next coach going to believe that? Because he is, a little bit on the other side. He's not that dominating guy. To a lot of people, he's more of a stopgap as opposed to a franchise builder. Their offensive weapons are less than average. Look, Josh Jacobs is a less than average running back. Darren Waller's fantastic. Their running backs outside of Jacobs, they're also Rams. Offensive line is solid, but there's no receiving talent. All right, you can still build around that. Defensively, they've had some problems. The team culture has some problems. Gruden has some problems. You also look at the division. Guys, you're in a division, and you have to be a realist. Look, if you're taking a job, and you're one of these coaches that really want to go out there and make a splash, you're taking a job in a division with a Denver team that could very potentially have somebody big. We'll talk about that in a minute. You're in a division with Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City, and Andy Reid. You're in a division with Justin Herbert and the Chargers. It all of a sudden gets a little bit daunting. So as good as the Raiders' job looks, because they are the most accomplished team on this list by far, they made the playoffs this year. As good as that looks, there is the idea of long-term, I'm going to go up against Mahomes, I'm going to go up against Herbert, and then whoever Denver brings in, while I am going to be doing this with Derek Carr. And while Derek Carr in another division would stand head and shoulders above, in this division, not so much. Jacksonville, this is an interesting spot because you do have Trevor Lawrence. And as bad as Lawrence looked this year, we do know the talent is there. They also have Travis Etienne, who is on the injured reserve. He's coming in. So you do have a brand new running back. Combine him with James Robinson. Offensive weapons. Jones is there. Chenault is there. You have some offensive weapons. Defense wasn't nearly as bad as people make it out to seem. There's no expectations in Jacksonville either. You go in there and you are a 500 team, people are going to be building a statue for you. I mean, Jacksonville is a losing culture, but you also have to get past that, the losing culture mentality. The Jags under this new owner is 42-119. Again, it's a good spot to be in when you're looking at the division and you're looking at, all right, a beatable Colts team that kind of collapsed at the end there. You're with a Tennessee team that how long is Derrick Henry going to be able to last? But Vrabel's really good, and then Houston's rebuilding. So the division is okay, but Jacksonville, the culture isn't very good. And it really kind of depends on how you believe in Trevor Lawrence. If you're an offensive mindset and you're an offensive coach, do you believe that Trevor Lawrence is the future? Do you believe that Trevor Lawrence is the guy to take you deep into the playoffs, into a Super Bowl, and kind of link your career to Trevor Lawrence? If you believe that as a yes, which I do, I think Lawrence is fantastic, you take that job and you go, look, I got Trevor Lawrence, I got Travis Etienne. Oh, by the way, I got a number 1 pick in the draft also coming to me. So there's a lot of allure for a big-time coach, especially an offensive-minded coach in Jacksonville. Let's talk about Denver. I talked about them briefly, where they might land another quarterback. Look, here's what you have in Denver. Despite everything that I just said about the AFC West, Denver's an attractive job because of this. You have all of your wide receivers that are massively talented sign long-term. That's what they wound up doing, right? They got Jerry Jeudy and Sutton and Tim Patrick. They signed all of these guys long-term. You have a franchise-building running back behind him in Javonte Williams. I don't think we can go out there and argue that. Offensive line is pretty good. Defense, you got some talent out there. Chubb is talented, and you look at Surtain is talented. So they're really kind of a piece away. And what piece is that? That piece is quarterback. Now, here's the problem with Denver. On the roster, you got Bridgewater, you got Drew Lock. They're not taking you anywhere. Sorry, Drew. Sorry, Teddy. But they're not taking you very far. And you know that. So you know you're a quarterback away. But that means as a head coach, you're putting your faith into whoever the general manager decides to go get your quarterback, right? Now, we've heard the rumors of Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers goes there, this is the number one job on the market without a problem. If Russell Wilson goes there, who Russell Wilson has now said he wants to, quote unquote, explore his options. If he goes there, this is the number one job on the market. But if they have to rely upon an also-ran, let's say Rodgers says no and Wilson says no and he stays put, now all of a sudden, who are you bringing in? You're bringing in an also-ran. You're bringing in a secondary guy. Maybe a Jimmy G comes over. All right, he's solid, but he's not this monumental player. And then you look at some of the young guys. Well, they don't have a top draft pick. They'd have to go into a draft that doesn't have tremendous quarterback depth. It all of a sudden turns into the number one job to, okay, it's an okay job because you have the AFC West problems and you have the question marks with, I'm not picking my own quarterback. That becomes an issue. Speaking of quarterbacks, what about the Miami Dolphins? Tua is the guy. And a lot of the reason why Brian Flores is gone and what we're hearing is that he wanted Deshaun Watson. He didn't want Tua. He even said, you know what, I should have drafted Justin Herbert. So there was some problems there between Tua and Flores. That was obvious because I think Flores is a great coach. There had to be something, and that is exactly what it was. There was some issues and some turmoil there. Well, Tua is your guy. Now we know how management feels about Tua. They're willing to let go of Brian Flores, who is an accomplished coach, for Tua. So Tua, you're locked in. But he is a talented quarterback. If you could squeak that out, there's no doubt about his talent. Can he stay on the field? Is really the question. You have Jalen Waddle, an emerging star. And you have a pretty good defense, but a lot of that defense was tied to Flores. Now, you look at Miami and you go, okay, you're in a division with Buffalo, who looks really good. You're in a division with Belichick and even a rebuilding Jet team. All right, you know what? Miami seems like it's starting to become a little bit of an attractive job, but there are some negatives there. There is no running game. There's no really complementary receivers. The offensive line needs some work, and the defense, I wonder how much of a Flores job that was as opposed to bringing somebody else in. You bring in a different defensive mind, and he's going to have the same kind of philosophy as Flores. You still need somebody to work on Tua. So again, here we go. The Miami job is attractive, but we have to worry about the Tua factor. Do you believe in Tua? Let's talk about the Chicago Bears. Since we're talking about quarterbacks, here we go. Justin Fields can be amazing. That's all you hear from Chicago fans. And everybody that looks at Justin Fields sees the talent. The Bears have a lot. The Bears have a very good defense, lots of good defensive players. Roquan Smith is still in his prime. You got Johnson still in his prime. They still have a lot of that, right? You have a Chicago Bears fan base that is dying for any kind of success here. Justin Fields might be the guy. He's got some complimentary receivers. You do have Montgomery. You got Mooney. You have Cole Kmet. There are certain things in place, but one of the things that have bothered the Bears year after year after year is their inability to have an offensive line. If you don't have an offensive line, Justin Fields isn't going to be very good. And you know that Matt Nagy, look, he won Coach of the Year. He was run out of town. Right? Fans were literally chanting at his son's high school game, fire Nagy. They were chanting it at Bulls games. So it's a town that you're not going to get a lot of leeway. Matt Nagy went to 2 playoff games, okay? Matt Nagy was a double doink away from winning a playoff game. He won Coach of the Year, and they ran him out in 5 years, right? Or 4 years. So you know that pressure is going to be there. But when you talk about you get to work with Justin Fields, well, that's alluring. You also get a fan base that if you do win, you'll be embraced in Chicago like no other. Okay, that'll happen really fast. They haven't won since the mid-'80s, or consistently won since the mid-'80s. You look at Lovie Smith was run out of town after a 10-win season, so you also know that that's there. The thing that you have to look at with the Bears is it's a better job than it is when you're really looking at it at first glance, because you have to assume that Aaron Rodgers is either out of town or he's retiring soon. Look, Aaron Rodgers doesn't have 7 years left in him, right? Obviously. So Kirk Cousins may be leaving Minnesota. We don't know what Minnesota's situation is. They're going to have a new coach, maybe a new quarterback. If Cousins leaves, you don't know. Detroit is, a terrible team at this point. Jared Goff doesn't scare anybody. And then if it's Jordan Love or retiring Rodgers in a year or two, you have some time. You have the best and most talented quarterback in the division the minute that Aaron Rodgers retires or leaves. That gives you a leg up. So the Bears' job, I think, is very alluring and can attract somebody pretty big. Minnesota, on the other hand, has the track record where you could walk into the job tomorrow, do a decent job, and probably make the playoffs. I mean, that is the roster. If they didn't lose Danielle Hunter, if they didn't lose Everson Griffin, if Barr wasn't banged up, you do have Dalvin Cook playing in his prime. You do have Jefferson, maybe the best receiver in the league. Thielen still has a lot left. And Kirk Cousins is never as bad as people make him out to be. He's a solid quarterback. So you have some stability in Minnesota, and you could walk in. Long-term, Minnesota's outlook, not that great, because you only got to think that Dalvin Cook probably only has 3 or 4 years left, and Kirk Cousins is probably going to be out the door. So long-term, Minnesota isn't the greatest job, but you could win right away, and you could win short-term. You're going to really have to get along with the general manager here in order to say, okay, for the first 2 years, let's try to get something done, and then year 3, 4, when we're trying to replace Cousins, we have to be on the right page. That's something to pay attention to as well. The Giants, this should be an alluring job, but I have a lot of questions about it. They do have some things in place. You do have Saquon Barkley. You do have Kadarius Toney. You do have Kenny Golladay, even though it was a down year. Their defense is pretty good. The New York Giants, as an organization, is a pretty stable organization. They're probably going to get your back in a lot of situations as well. The Giant fans are a pretty good fan base. You look at the division, it's a good division to be in, because I don't think Philly are world beaters. I don't think Washington's world beaters. And Dallas always kind of has their problems. So you do have a good division. But look, the Giants, defensively, they don't have that one big name. They don't have that one guy that you look at. Offensively, I don't know what Saquon's got left. I don't even know if he's going to be there. Are they going to extend him? Kenny Golladay looked like a shell of himself. They do not have a quarterback. Is it going to be Daniel Jones? Is it not going to be Daniel Jones? So they have to start from scratch, start fresh. The Giants' job seems to me like a job that somebody's going to take that goes, okay, look, just make sure that you give me a long contract, because I'm not winning in the next couple of years, but I can make this team competitive in 3 or 4 years. That is a long leap with no quarterback when you're going up and you're making your choice. If you're a coach and you're going, I got Justin Fields, I got Trevor Lawrence, I even have a stable Kirk Cousins, or I could go with the Giants, Daniel Jones, maybe. And it's the same thing with the Texans. Look, Davis Mills looked okay, right? Davis Mills looked like he could be a guy that could perform in this league, but the Texans are just devoid of talent. Their defense stepped up after dropping. They literally waived their best player in Cunningham in the middle of the season. Their defense stepped up and looked okay, but there's not many names on that team, right? You look at the offense, Cooks was banged up, but outside of him, there's not many names there. I think Nico Collins could be a player. Davis Mills, you got to make a decision. Is it going to be him? Am I going to be straddled with Davis Mills on my future? So the Texans' job is not that alluring. I would say the Texans and Giants jobs are the least alluring jobs out there. The Raiders job is not as good as people believe. I think Jacksonville, because Trevor Lawrence is an alluring job. The Broncos could be the number one job. If they are committed, and you sit down and you have a general manager meeting and they go, look, we're going to get a veteran quarterback. Well, we're already on the phone with Rodgers. We already have a deal done. Denver becomes that job, okay? If not, you got Miami, Chicago, Minnesota. I do believe that Miami is a good job, but that division worries me. Minnesota has the stability to win right now, but I think that the Bears job is the best job on the market. And this isn't coming just because of a Bears fan or anything. This is the best job on the market because you have the city, the fan base, the winnable division, and you have Justin Fields, who, if you turn around and you can get anything out of him, it's going to be pretty fantastic. All right, let's take a look at some of the coaches, right? Harbaugh, look, Harbaugh's not coming here. I know everybody wants, he's not coming to the NFL. I think he's using this as leverage. I think everybody wants to think about Harbaugh, and I think he would be the number one on many people's lists. I've seen him linked to Miami. I've seen him linked to Chicago. I've seen him linked to Minnesota. Already, right off the bat, I've seen him linked to 3 teams. The thing is that he's hiring coordinators. In the last week, he's hired some new coordinators for Michigan. I don't think you hire new coordinators in anticipation to leave. I think that this was all kind of a power play to try to get a new contract. Brian Flores was fired because he had problems with the GM, not because of his coaching ability. He had problems with Tua, not because of his coaching ability, and he wanted Deshaun Watson. Maybe Flores goes to a team like the Giants, who then go out there and grab Deshaun Watson, and maybe that's a match made in heaven. I think you could give Flores a team like the Giants or like Houston that need that rebuild, need that brand new flavor in there, that brand new kind of taste. Maybe he does allure a Deshaun Watson. I don't think Brian Flores is made for Chicago. I don't think that Brian Flores is made for a Denver or Minnesota. I think he goes to one of these lesser teams and tries to work something brand new and goes, okay, look, we're going to give you a couple of years. We don't expect miracles from you. Give us a competitive team. Josh McDaniels. The only way Josh McDaniels is coming to a team is if he's got a superstar quarterback and kind of gets the blessing from Bill. I mean, that's just the reality here. Could he go to Miami? Sure, but do you want to go head-to-head with Bill every year? No, you don't want that. Could he go to Chicago? Makes a lot of sense. If he gets Justin Fields, different division. All right, McDaniels there, but they're not known as an offensive juggernaut, and there's not a lot of weapons outside of Fields. Jacksonville makes a lot of sense, and I think Jacksonville would be the only landing spot for Josh McDaniels. I know Giant fans want him because of kind of a Giant connection there, but I think it would be only him. Now, Bieniemy and Leftwich are two offensive coordinators that I think definitely should get their job. I think they should get a look. Leftwich to Jacksonville makes a lot of sense. I made a video about that once Urban Meyer was fired. You guys could go back and check out that video. Once Urban Meyer was fired, I made a video that Byron Leftwich should be the guy. He's got Jacksonville ties. He should definitely be somewhere, but there are speculations that, you know what, he wants to finish out one more year with Brady and then kind of go look somewhere else. All right, that makes sense. Eric Bieniemy should get a job somewhere. He should get a look somewhere. I think Denver's a pretty good spot for him. The problem with Eric Bieniemy is that we're starting to see these Kansas City coordinators, well, that they don't call plays, and now it's an Andy Reid sort of situation, a.k.a. Matt Nagy. I think Bieniemy would be really good in Minnesota and new offensive mindset after the Zimmer defensive mindset, or very likely maybe in Denver. He knows the division. He gets an offense. He could work with Williams and really get the most out of a running back there as well. Brian Daboll, the other offensive coordinator, I think he's fantastic. I think he should have his pick of teams. What he's done with Josh Allen, who was quote-unquote a project, is just been remarkable. What he's done with that offense, he really even turned Devin Singletary back into a really good player, Dawson Knox into a good player. Brian Daboll should get his pick of teams. I'm thinking that he's looking at Miami and Chicago as the number 1 and number 2. He may be looking at Jacksonville, but I think somebody that goes to Jacksonville wants a little more control than what Daboll is going to get or what he's willing to get. Peterson, another guy, look, I know he won a championship with Philadelphia. I didn't love him there. I think he's fine. And again, another offensive mindset. Could he win in Denver? Absolutely, if you give him the people to win there. I don't know if Rodgers or Wilson or somebody else like that would want him under them. He rubs guys the wrong way at times. I think Chicago is probably a good spot for him. In Jacksonville, again, those offensive teams. Kellen Moore, same thing. Nathaniel Hackett, same thing. Offensive mindset, offensive guys, offensive quarterbacks that could be young and get a shot. But I just can't imagine them going onto a team that wants to win right now. I think a Kellen Moore and Nathaniel Hackett, they are more prepared to go to teams like a Houston, like a New York Giants kind of situation, teams that need a little finessing as opposed to overriding control. Todd Bowles, Leslie Frazier, Raheem Morris, these are Dan Quinn, 4 defensive coordinators that I all think should get a look, but the offense is really kind of leading the way here. These guys are good defensive coordinators, if anything else. Maybe not full out. Like, I don't see Minnesota going to the defensive route because they just did that with, and you look at Zimmer and what he was. He's a great defensive coordinator, but they just did that. I don't think Miami goes defensive coordinator because they just had Foles. So you don't usually fire a defensive coordinator and then go hire another one. Chicago could be the landing spot, but they have a young quarterback. Same thing with Jacksonville, that they want someone. All of these 4 guys, Bowles, Frazier, Morris, and Quinn, all make sense for the Raiders. The Raiders are a team that have their offense. You have a veteran quarterback there, so you have your offense kind of a little stability, and then you don't have an offensive coordinator, leaving. No. You have Gruden, who was an offensive mind. Okay, that's okay. Then a special teams guy. Raheem Morris, Leslie Frazier, Todd Bowles, Dan Quinn, they could wind up with the Raiders if that becomes available. And then the final name is Bill O'Brien, who's really the only name coming out of college here. I don't think Harbaugh's going to leave. So really the only name is Bill O'Brien. Is Bill O'Brien ready to get back in? Well, he's clearly not going back to Houston. We know that. And, do you trust Bill O'Brien with the future of a Fields or a Lawrence? No, I don't. Bill O'Brien would make sense with a veteran team. But what's a veteran team? I don't think Denver's going to be that team. And then you look at maybe the Raiders. Yeah, you could possibly go to the Raiders. That could be it. I don't think the Giants want to develop somebody under that as well. Minnesota would make the most sense for a Bill O'Brien if you were going in that direction. Bill O'Brien can coach. Bill O'Brien is just a terrible GM, and you're not going to need one in that spot. You don't give him overriding control. So that's kind of my list. That's kind of where I'm looking. I don't want to speculate on who's going where and pin it down. For example, I think Brian Daboll should go to the Chicago Bears. I think that makes a lot of sense. But can he go to Jacksonville? Absolutely. So I wanted to give you guys a couple of choices on where guys should go, what's a good fit for these. Don't think it's totally unusual. Like I said, we have 8 openings. Well, we have 7 openings with maybe the Raiders, so we have maybe 8 openings. But on average, there's 7 openings per year. Most of these guys are going to fizzle out, but you might get 1 or 2 that really latch on. You look at a couple of years ago where there was a mass exodus, and you got guys like LaFleur in Green Bay, just found a perfect position, a perfect situation. Maybe we're going to be talking about that if you go on, the Giants get a new quarterback, or the Raiders go out there, and you think that Derek Carr is the guy. Maybe Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence. So there is a lot of maybes, a lot of opportunities. It's going to be a really interesting offseason. Once one goes, you're going to start to see kind of the falling. You have a lot of defensive coordinators, a lot of offensive coordinators. There's not really a lot of retread coaches here, and not a lot of college coaches are really looking to come on over. All right, guys, if you liked the video, please comment below. Tell me what your favorite team, who do you want on your favorite team, or maybe your favorite coordinator or favorite coach. Who did I forget? Make sure you subscribe, like. You could also hit me up over on Twitter. It's @TomBartonSports and TomBartonSports.com. Have a very good day, everybody.